Good evening and welcome to another live edition of the Magpie Circle show, and it gets a little bit brighter with each passing day as we enter the National League promotion playoff countdown. Joined tonight by Leigh Curtis from the Nottingham Post. He'll be with us from 7:30, busy filing a few stories. Busy day at Meadow Lane. Sam Graham coming back for a third loan stint with the club. Leigh joining us from 7:30, and old mucker of mine, Trevor West, having made his debut a couple of weeks ago, is back on with us tonight. I'm relying on you, Trevor. Tonight is a show in which we are looking at predictions. So I'm relying on you to have done all the detailed background and info, because I have spent probably about 7 hours on the FIFA World Cup ticket portal today, and thankfully managed to get in just before this show and book a ticket a day for the first 19 days of the World Cup. With my luck, I will be probably getting, I've no idea, New Zealand versus Peru or whatever. You have to buy all the tickets before the draw is made next week. But one a day for 16 days. That's not too bad. Trevor, welcome. And I presume, knowing you're quite a studious sort, you've worked out every possible computation and permutation known to man for what is going to happen in the National League promotion running, correct?
I've done some projections, yeah. But to anyone out there, I would say don't have a bet on what I might say. Certainly don't put any money on any of my predictions. They're known to be wrong. Yeah.
We're all in a good mood. 2 wins in the last 4 days. Can we make it 3 wins in a week? Amazing how we, I guess, seesaw from one side to another. Your take on Boreham Wood, Trev?
Very good defensively, as their kind of record would show. They do seem to have hit the skids a little bit since their FA Cup run came to an end. And really, they were there for the taking. I thought Notts played well. 1-0, I don't think. I think we could have had 2 or 3. Matty Palmer perhaps should have had a second. But we looked pretty comfortable throughout, I thought. I don't really think they troubled us too much. Sam looked good. Looked pretty comfortable. I thought all in all, it was a fairly comfortable performance.
Comments coming in. Mark Hamilton, welcome back, Sam Graham. Max Seth, evening all, an impressive performance last night against a good team. Chris Gosling, evening all, great performance last night. One where we gave a bit of everything. Only thing missing was a couple more goals. Dale Piker, evening to you, sir. Duncan Comrie, evening all, great performance. Thought Wootton was immense. Chris B, just finished my prediction calculator, erring on the side of caution for Notts results, and we finish 7th. Most surprising, this is surprising, was I had Wrexham taking top spot by a point from Stockport. Chris Gosling agreed, Duncan. I thought Wootton was superb last night. Okay, let's make it as interactive as we can. Who would we go for while Trevor can think about this while you're getting on the keyboards? Who would you say was man of the match last night? Okay, Magpie Circle flock, hit the keyboard. Who was your MOM last night? Trevor, who was your MOM last night? If I remember correctly, at the end of the game, sponsors gave it to Connell.
Yeah, I was pleased for Connell actually, because he's not had a lot of game time recently. He wouldn't have been my choice, but I was still pleased for him nonetheless. If it had been down to me, as a couple of viewers have already pointed out, I watched Carl Wootton really closely, and he ran his socks off, did really well. But for me, I thought Matty Palmer had a really good game. I'd have probably given it to Matt Palmer actually, but yeah.
Here's a few: Max Seth, Lacey, Jurgen Halligan, Palmer, Chris B, Lacey, Dale Pikett, Wootton, Lippy Jane, DKE, and Palmer. Steph Milek, evening gents down from the south coast on Worthing. Ian Bircham says Palmer MOM for me. Chris Gosling really close last night. Lacey was clearly running himself into the ground. And Max Seth has well, he's kind of said the name I was thinking of. He said, I'm surprised that Arthur didn't get it just because he's a big name and the sponsors do love a big name for man of the match. Reminds me of when Vauxhall used to do all the sponsorship of England and David Beckham won it every single game. And the sponsors get to meet the MOM. And in the end, we had to change the whole voting structure. It was very funny. It was very funny. Peter Minkley, Dion was immense. Stephen Newton, Dion. Sponsors are, and I wasn't the match sponsor last night. I very, very difficult. I would probably lean, I guess people didn't do it because he's only on for an hour, but I would have said Arthur. I think he does make a bit of a difference. I think he's undoubtedly got a bit of a quality. And here's these little things that I notice. Let's see. And I don't know the answer to the question I'm about to pose. Did you notice we all think of Arthur as left-footed? Corners on one side takes right-footed. Corners on the other, he takes left-footed. Some free kicks right-footed, some left-footed. How many people notice that? How many modern professionals kick with both feet? There aren't many now. There aren't many. And if you watch his set-piece delivery, either side, right foot and left foot. Now, the last one I can honestly say I definitely know would kick with both feet from set pieces would have been Don Masson. Now, that's a long time ago. Can you think of anyone in between, Trevor?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. I'll come back to you on that one, Paul.
Yeah, but I thought very.
I'm struggling.
You know the other person when I was at Leicester, and he would take penalties with different feet. And we used to talk about this: corners, set pieces. John Robertson. John Robertson would take penalties with different feet, different corners. Yeah. Very, very, very rare you come across that. So, anyone come up with anyone else that's done that either foot for Notts since before or since Don Masson? I
will say, Paul. Sorry, if you. Well, I was just going to say about Harry Arthur. One of the things I noticed how much time he seems to have on the ball without getting flustered. So there's no panic there whatsoever. He'll get the ball, he'll look up, he'll play a measured pass as though he's got all the time in the world. And it's always the right pass. He just looks incredibly composed, no matter who's bearing down on him. I thought he... and actually, the other thing I was going to say about Harry Arthur was it seems to be giving Matty Palmer a lot more freedom to kind of get forward and, get a few shots in. So that's already got the makings of a good partnership, I think.
Okay, some more comments. They're coming in thick and fast. Peter Binkley, I think, so that Dion was immense. Chris Gosling, the spread of names shows what a strong team performance it was. Shane Walker, evening, guys, from a sunny Leigh on the Solent. Man of the match, all of them. Gary Wardle, Arthur will win MON when he plays a full 90. Ian Birchinell, Arthur could have had a second yellow. Need him staying on the pitch. Neil Widdowson, hey Gary, not giving that £50 up easy. There's a bet there between Neil and Gary on, I think it's a top 3 finish for Notts or not, and there's £50 going to charity. Chris Gosling, the only thing that worried me last night was Arthur getting involved in handbags when he didn't need to, having already been booked. Max Seth, we did lose the middle a little when Arthur did go off, but I did notice the 2-footed corner taking. It's not good to see that our right-footed players are being outdone by a player's weaker foot. I prefer to focus on the fact we've got someone that can kick a ball with both feet. Zedo, good evening. Whole team played well. Those playing through illness deserve bigger credit. Hope they recover well enough to play Saturday. Stephen Elwis, good evening. And as your French, Trevor, from Celsius, in the centre of France, listed. I don't know whether that means he's in a listed building, whether it's a listed town or community. My knowledge of France isn't great. Lippy Jane, superb corner and crosses placement was great. Steph Milek, Max, if someone's weaker foot takes better corners, I'll take that. Let's just dwell a little bit on Harry Arter, because I think he potentially could be a very, very shrewd signing. We spoke on the show earlier this week, Trevor, about, for me, he probably delivers a better set piece ball than anybody since Alan Sheehan we've had at Notts.
Yeah,
and I think that makes a difference. I think
absolutely
that makes a difference.
Of course, yeah. Can't disagree with you there, Paul. No, it's exactly what we need. Yeah,
because it's unfair sometimes to focus on a set piece coach and all the rest of it. But any set piece, the first requirement of the set piece is an inch perfect delivery. And if you haven't got anyone that can deliver to an extremely high standard, which Sheehan did, one of the reasons why Martin bought him, and I think Arter gives us much more offensive options in that capability. And the other thing I like about him, he gets stuck in. There's a couple of little, let's call them borderline challenges, and I quite like seeing, there was the Tate when the big centre half, do you remember, was running through? Yeah. And I think there was a foul on him at first, but he knew that, and then he went in over one of the Notts players. They piled in, we piled in. And you kind of need that. You kind of need that, because again, you would use adjectives last night. I thought we played well, but second half, to be honest, we had to do a reasonable amount of defending. Fair play to Boreham Wood. They gave it a go, and clearly chasing a game is not their forte. They're very much get a goal, aren't they? And then hold on. Yeah. Chasing a game is not their natural game, but they gave it a go. And I think, again, we, like at Dagenham, we had to be resolute. We had to be resilient. And they're not necessarily characteristics that you would put in the top 3 or 4 of Notts County this season.
No, exactly. Well, I think the last time I was on, we kind of had this discussion, and we thought that was, they needed to learn to kind of win ugly, or to be resolute, or to get stuck in. For all the attractive football that they play, and there's no dispute about that there are times you need to grind results out. And by all accounts, they, there's a bit of a rear guard action on Saturday, and they held on and they got the result.
Connor was exceptional.
Yeah. And then I thought last night, although Boreham Wood didn't trouble us to any great extent, we did have to get stuck in, and we had to kind of hang on to that, and we ground that out. So, and the other thing with Harry Arter getting stuck in and DKE getting stuck in, I love DKE. He's my sort of player. Love him to bits. And the thing with that, whenever you see any of these kind of crunching tackles goes in, the other thing it does actually, it gives the crowd a lift, and then the crowd get behind the team a bit more as well. So sometimes that's all it takes, Just need 1 or 2 players letting the opposition know that they're there and they're not going to be overawed or anything like that.
Max Seth says, I can't wait to get Cameron back in the team with Arter's crossing ability. Chris Gosling, if we give Boreham Wood a win from their games in hand, there's 2 teams we need to displace in the top 5 to get the home tie. Who do you think are the 2 we can catch, or are there more? We'll come on to the whole permutations, commutations a little bit later in the programme. Stephen Elwes again, good evening from Celseshire in the centre of France. I'm a first-time messenger, been following Notts since 1960. Well, you've got about a few years on me and Trevor. Steph Milek, I bet Arter takes loads of verbals and winding up off the opposition about the level he is playing at. I suspect he does, actually. I hadn't thought of it in that way. I like it that he's up for the fight and will give a bit back. No red cards, though, Harry, please. Max Seth, we seem to have a little more street smart about us last night compared to other weeks. Much better game management in the last few minutes. Good point, Max. I noticed that. I don't know if you saw it, Trevor. Leigh went down, didn't he? I think he was clutching his head at first so the referee would stop the game. And then once the game was stopped, he was looking at his knee. You know, these are all things that you need to do.
Everyone else does it. And you know what, you can't fault them for doing it. And it's, I mean, I don't like the kind of whole term game management, but actually that's what it is, isn't it? You know, do what it takes to win the game. So everyone else does it. Yeah. So I don't have a problem with it at all.
Sam Graham. So son of, I think most of us would know this, but son of famous Nottingham boxer, although he moved to Sheffield, Harold Bomber Graham. Harold was active in the 80s and the early 90s. So he's back for a third loan spell. And I think this says a lot. I think it's perfectly timed. I think clearly the owners have decided to supplement the squad not once but twice in the 7 days, with Harry Arter coming in and Sam Graham. Good time, I think, with 10 games to go, to be strengthening the squad, a few more bodies, a bit more competition, adding when we just need to maybe step up a gear or two between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know Sam Graham's quality. You know, we know what he's capable of. He'll slot into there perfectly. He knows, you know, he's like you say, it's his third time, so maybe a little bit unlucky not to get more game time previously, but no, it's set up nicely for him to come in and give something a little bit different. So yeah, it's good signing.
Yeah, and I think it's the right time.
Yeah,
you know, it's the right time to bring somebody fresh in, an extra player on the training ground. And fair play to the owners. For me, demonstrates intent. You know, demonstrates intent. More comments coming in. Chris Gosling, I have Arter surfing his first one match ban in the home game versus Kings Lynn. He's planning it well. Peter Minkley, Arter was organising all the time. He's a massive signing for us with all his experience. ZO, Arter effect, is that the ingredient we have been lacking? Midfield looked more balanced and able to open up the opposition. Connell and DKE gave you heart, and that physical element we've lacked. Martin Hearson, DKE and Arter's grit and fight seems to have boosted the team's mentality. Still to see a full strength Knots, Arter, Roberts, Rodriguez, and get Sam back on fire, and could have a strong finish. It's interesting, Trevor. Clearly, you know, the club's had issues with a virus, had injuries, and players to an extent who have not had a lot of game time. Connell Rawlinson, DKE, Dion Kelly Evans. You then add Arter into that mix. What you're then bringing back into a team as a result, I guess, as much of injuries and an illness to other players. What you're doing is putting a lot more steel in the team, and you know, it's all about what you do in adversity and all the rest of it. We've taken 6 points from Dagenham and Boreham Wood with types of players that is perhaps it's because they're that type, haven't necessarily been getting game time. You know, and I don't think it's any coincidence. You've got Connell at the heart of the defence. You had DK last night. For me, you know, in a way, while we might not play as much attractive football as some might say earlier in the season, for me, it's a more effective, and I know you don't like using the phrase, but it's a group of players that perhaps manage games a bit better.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. And at this stage of the season, that's what it's what you want. You need the players who can, who are there and will see a game out. And yeah, like you say, it's effective. May not be as attractive, but at this stage of the season, when we get to the business end, and it's all about the results. I wouldn't have said last night's game was a classic by any stretch of the imagination. We played well, but I'll take a 1-0 every week from now until the end of the season.
Yeah, because part of me thinks we've almost obsessed over style of play. We obsess over statistics. We obsess over game possession. We obsess over how many chances we miss. But you win a few games, those stats become much less important, much less talked about, because, end of the day, the name of the game is winning matches. And I will guarantee you that going into Chesterfield, this group of players will be far more confident than they were coming off the back of the Stockport game.
Oh, absolutely.
Because winning breeds confidence, and confidence is still a remarkably important constituent and ingredient of a professional footballer. And I do hear people a lot of time banging on about quality of individual performance, points per game. I never look at points per game. End of the day, if we look at points per game, I think we're not as high in the table as we are at the minute, are we? Yet we'll all now, because it suits certain people, not talk about average points per game. Look, 10-game season now. 10-game season, and then depending what happens, it's another 1, 2, or 3-game season. So I would take far more confidence, far more appreciation, and enjoy last night's game, right? And enjoy Dagenham away, because we played 16 away league games now. 10 of them we haven't won. Dagenham was one of the 6 wins. So I get far more enjoyment going to Dagenham and coming home on the train having won than having played brilliantly and drawn 2-2, and we can all wax lyrical about individual performances and all the rest of it, and 82% possession, and we've got the highest XG in the country and whatever. I don't give a damn about it, to be honest. It doesn't cross my mind at all.
Quite. Yeah, that absolutely agree with you there, Paul. It's as I say, I'd take a 1-0 backs to the wall win. I mean, if you think about the Grimsby game away, I think that's one of my favourite games of the season, actually. Apart from the 2 Barnet games, Grimsby away, kind of last minute winner type thing at their place. Yeah, they're the kind of games I like.
Yeah. I think Chris Gosling makes a good point here. The last 2 games have given me a glimmer of hope that we can roll up our sleeves and battle in playoff games. It's a very important point. The way we have played in the last 2 games gives me, like Chris is saying there, far more confidence that we are equipped to compete in the playoffs. Because I'll tell you one thing, playoffs are not down to luck. Lots of people will say they are. They're people who make excuses. We've said this before with Neil Warnock. You go and tell Neil Warnock that playoffs are a matter of luck. See what he says to you. See what he says to you, right? It will be direct and to the point. Max Seth, I'm not bothered if we don't play pretty football for the last 10 games, as long as we win. Ian Birchinall, I don't think my nerves could take 10 1-0s until the end of the season. Well, mine would, I can assure you. I can assure you. Chris Gosling,
there's a reason that Notts were voted the most stressful team in the country or the world or whatever it was to follow. So, you have to strap yourself in for the ride if you're a Notts fan. Yeah. It's stressful.
Zedo, Ruben, by actually scoring, played one of his best games. Is no Robertson team a coincidence, or because we can only have one luxury player in the team? Running matches will require streetwise football. Gary Wardle, we should have enough senior pros to manage our games, and them and Doyle should be spreading the gritty side that we need. What else have we got? I think we're up. at the moment. Gary Wardle, Zedo, that's why Ruben can go for me. CG, we've never doubted their ability, but we have their character. The bottle needed is clearly there, but not been used until now. Chris Gosling, Ruben was very good last night and turning out of trouble with his first touch. Opened up the game on more than one occasion last night. Jurgen Halligan be good to hit a run of form going into the playoffs. Yeah, and I think that's an important point. I think I heard you leaving in your leather jacket on your Harley last night, Jurgen, down Meadow Lane. I think it was you anyway, unless we've got another Notts County Harley-loving supporter. Here's one thing that would be nice. Now, I'm not sure it'll actually happen, but there is still unquestionably a divide among certain sections of Notts fans who align themselves with Ian or they align themselves with Neil. And everybody talks about when we win, Ian Birchinall, that's great for Ian. When we lose, it's Neil Ardley would have been doing better. Look, Ian Birchinall is not Notts County Football Club, right? Ian Birchinall don't win as an individual. Notts County win, of which Ian Birchinall is manager. And Neil Ardley left the club 12 months ago. And people kind of like form these camps and have a dig at each other. Look, there are 10 games to go. It's a 10-game race to get into the playoffs. If, as probably most of us think, Stockport is insurmountable. Okay, so we got 10 games. Let me tell you the best chance that we have got of going up this season. Right, that's by people unifying and sticking together. Okay, if we go up this season, right, Ian Birchinall and this group of players deserve the freedom of the city, right? Because they've taken us back out of a very difficult league, right? Freedom of the city, give them all new contracts, do whatever you want. They will have earned it. Conversely, if we don't go up, then I think, you know, my fairly brutal assessment, then we have failed. Okay? Don't dress it up as 101 excuses about why it's a tougher division and all this and all the rest of it. We have failed. If it comes to that eventuality, I'm sure there will be a big inquest, okay? And the owners will look why we didn't achieve the objective of getting promoted, okay? But there's 10 games plus playoffs that will decide that outcome. The best chance we've got is everybody sticking together. You know, appreciate last night was difficult. People with spending their money, getting ready for Chesterfield. We just scraped the 5,000. Everybody needs to get behind the club. Everyone needs to get behind Ian Birchinall, need to get behind Doyle. They need to get behind the players. They need to get behind the set piece coach. Whatever it is, right? Everyone just needs to park it, okay? And for 10 games, the best chance that we got at getting promoted is everybody being in it together. In it together, right? And it will go one or two ways at the end of the season, right? But what will decide that are results, okay? No, I don't want any truck with, we can't compete with Wrexham or Stockport this season because they've spent more money. We are competing with them. We are against them. There's no reason why we cannot get promoted, okay? Nor do I want people, the often mantra of Ian Birchinall, out of his depth, inexperienced, whatever. He's the head coach, right? And we're in the playoffs, okay? So you want to do everything you possibly can to help him achieve the ambition of getting promoted. So it would be marvellous if we can just kind of park it, right? Because results will out, as they always do. Results will decide this issue. So park it, let's get on with it, embrace it. We are in a promotion running, a promotion playoff running. Far better than being perhaps where Southend are, where Yeovil are, okay? You're treading water in this campaign. There's nothing to look forward to until next season. We're in the thick of the action. Embrace it. Get on with it. Deal with it. Trevor?
Yeah, exactly. We're all in it together, aren't we, as they say? So, and we've all got one common aim, and it doesn't matter who's the head coach or who was the head coach or whatever term we want to give to them. We've got a good set of players. We've got a manager or a head coach who wants to prove himself. He's obviously still learning about this league, I think, but he's shown he's willing to adapt, I think. And I think actually the fixture list is possibly quite helpful to us because we've got a relatively, I don't want to use the word easy running, but we are playing, quite a few games against teams who are currently in the bottom 5 or 6. And you would like to think that we can pick up the points we need, but not only that, get a bit of momentum going that we've not really had so far this season. So if we have a strong end to the league, funnily enough, just as we did under Neil Warnock when we got promoted from the playoffs from the old second division to the first, I think we won something like, I think we won most of our last kind of 8 games or whatever. And I think, if I remember rightly, didn't we go to West Ham who'd been, I don't know if they'd been crowned champions that day, but we went to Upton Park and beat them 2-0, something like that.
Yeah, I was doing commentary that day, Mark.
You were for Radio Trent, I remember listening to you.
Yes. No one listened to me because everyone was listening to Colin Slater on Radio Nottingham. So I was talking to myself and you, Trevor, by the sounds of it. But Drake scored 2 goals. Dean Thomas was in the commentary box with me, and they had a helicopter with the trophy because they all thought it was going to be West Ham. West Ham lost, and the helicopter had to whiz up to Oldham to give it to Oldham because Notts won 2-1 on the last day of the season. Yeah. Quite right. Sorry to cut you off there. Welcome, Leigh. Turn your mic up.
I was here. Sorry about that. Yeah, good evening.
How are we, young man?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm all right. Not too bad. Yeah, alive after COVID last week, but
yeah, you had the same you had the same virus as Charlie Slater and the Notts County players, squad and management, I understand. Virus spelled COVID.
Yeah, it was okay. It was all over pretty sharpish. I had a couple of bad days where I had a really sore throat. But yeah, none of the classic symptoms of losing your smell, cough, or breathlessness, or I didn't even have a temperature, but sore throat was the worst. Like Tuesday, Wednesday, could barely swallow, and then overnight it just disappeared. It was all really weird. And then I think by Saturday I started to test negative, and then Sunday I had another negative test. So yeah, it was all over with pretty sharpish, thankfully.
Hey, great to have you back. No, you couldn't quite make it down to Dagenham, but you were there last night. Here's just a few more comments, and then I want to get some thoughts from you, Leigh. Peter Minkley, Jurgen Halligan says, yes, that was me going down Meadow Lane. So if you see a Harley with a proper motor Harley jacket, leather jacketed guy on it, that is Jurgen Halligan whizzing on his way home. Peter Minkley, last night proved these players will give 100%. And with Arthur, this could make a real difference in the final games. Shaman Talk, yeah, welcome boys. Went to Wrexham last night with Halifax, can't see anybody stopping them now. Jurgen, both good managers, but Virginal's football better to watch. Not interested in the comparisons, Jurgen. Results, no else matters. Ian Shaman, I would say same about Stockport after we played them last week. They were awesome. Benny Boy 29, plenty of 1-0 wins in the second half of the Munto season. I think Trevor mentioned that. Were all more enjoyable than 3 or 4 goal wins. Gary Wardle, Arthur can't do it alone. The others are clearly doing it too now, but why not before? Better late than never. Chris Jordan, well said, Paul. Fans, staff and players united is the key now. Steph Marnack, Neil has gone, get over it. Trust them back, Ian, see where we are at the end of the season. True, real fans will not be on the manager's back with 10 games to go. I don't think any fans will be, Steph. We're all up and at them at the minute, aren't we? And long may that continue. Max Seth, I was asked a question last night and I would like your thought. Which team is better, Nolan playoff team or this current squad? I'm undecided. We won't debate that, but I don't even think it's a matter for debate. Kevin Nolan, League Two playoffs. We're currently in non-league. End of story as far as I'm concerned. So we'll nip that one in the head. Sorry about that. David Shorter, perfectly correct, Paul. Love it when you get on your soapbox. I hadn't even started tonight. Right. Anyway, there's plenty more. I'll come back to them in a minute. Leigh, thank you for joining us. Right. Sam Graham, another one coming. I don't know if you put start the programme. I think owners are doing really well at the minute, strengthening, I think, at exactly the right time. Arta is already proving a big fans' favourite. We've got Sam Graham coming in today. Your thoughts on that one? And do you think there might be any more? Or do you think that's kind of business done?
Well, I think they've obviously brought Sam in because of Richard Brindley being out for the next 6 weeks or so. So that to me makes perfect sense. Obviously, Sam knows the club. I think he was on loan at Rochdale, wasn't he, earlier on in the season? By all accounts, did pretty well there. Played plenty of League Two games, so I think that's a shrewd signing. Knows the club inside out, so I think that's a smart one, particularly with Richard being out, which I have to say is a significant blow because, you know, we've spoken a lot about players this year and, you know, the same names get trotted out: Matt Palmer, Callum Roberts, Ruben Rodriguez, Carl Wootton, Carl Cameron. But Richard Brindley this season has been just a pure model of consistency and very rarely has a bad game. Has taken to that position at centre half as, you know, being one of those designated to carry the ball out of defence. He's done that brilliantly well. So it is a blow to lose him because I think he's been absolutely superb this season. So yeah, the Sam Graham one. Whether they bring anybody else in, I don't know.
Is there a deadline as such? I've just seen something come up from the
End
ZL.
of March.
I wasn't sure. Transfer deadline tomorrow?
I'm pretty sure it's the end of March. I'm pretty sure. But I think that might be it unless something comes along that tickles their fancy. Because let's face it, there's 10 games left now.
Yeah.
You know, they're in a pretty good position. 6th in the table. Got a fairly, what I would say, a promising running when you look at the teams that we've got to play. Although Chesterfield's defeat last night shows you that nothing's ever a given in this league, is it? So, but I just feel that the signing of Harry Arta, I'm pleased you mentioned him, because I think the last time I came on this show, we was talking about what knots were perhaps missing in the centre of midfield, and there was a lot of debate about whether they needed a centre forward, whether they needed a central midfield player. But I think what he's done in the games, certainly last night, and from what I saw at the weekend, what he has given Notts is just that bit of experience, that bit of knowledge, and he's given them a bit of bite as well. I mean, I wouldn't say the tackles that he made last night were particularly clean ones, but
we debated that as well, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the type of thing that we have been missing. We don't really have that kind of player in the centre of midfield. You know, Matty Palmer for me is very much a metronome type player. You know, keeps you ticking over, and he's been fantastic. But you know, we've just missed that sort of presence, almost that streetwise midfielder, and Harry, with the career that he's had, I mean, you can see why. I mean, he's just, you know, his brain and how quick he is in possession, and has already obviously grabbed an assist as well, didn't he, at the weekend? So I think that could be a very, very shrewd signing going forwards, and I thought he was excellent last night. And I think once he gets up to full speed, I mean, we have to remember, I know he went to Charlton and he didn't play many games there because of injury or whatnot. But I think once Harry is up to speed and playing 90 minutes regularly, he could be a hell of a signing in terms of helping Notts get across that line, and particularly, obviously, when they make the playoffs, because I do expect them to reach the playoffs now. But I think, yeah, that was a really smart move by Ian. And, you know, you have to give credit to Nottingham Forest, you know, because I know the relationship between the two clubs, I mean, the fans see it as, I mean, I don't put it in the same bracket as Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, where there's just, you know, there is sheer hatred. Birmingham Villa, it's sheer hatred. It almost feels like big brother, little brother type syndrome. But I think, you know, that relationship, when you look at Jaden Richardson, who's been absolutely superb, Harry Arta coming across as well. I just think that's, you know, you have to, you know, pay credit to Forest for letting us have those players, because they certainly made a difference to the squad.
Yeah, all that was brilliant to the last bit about Forest, Leigh, and I understand the point you're making. I understand. Trevor may bear me out on this. I don't know. Look, this is a bit like Daniel Taylor, the scribe or whatever he is at the Athletic, frequently propounds about the jealousy of Notts County against Nottingham Forest, and then in the next breath he will propound how Nottingham Forest are rivals with Liverpool. Funny, I don't really see Liverpool thinking that rivalry is with Liverpool, with Forest, in the last 38 years or whatever it is. Look, as clubs, we always have rivalry. And if two clubs in a city, Bristol Rovers, Bristol City, Bristol Rovers have probably long been in the shadow of Bristol City. But, you cannot deny, if you have two clubs in a city, there will be intense rivalry,
But I don't sort of, obviously I cover a breadth of the Midlands, and I don't see the same level of. I don't see, if you look at Birmingham and
given the disparity in divisions in which we are playing.
It probably would be different if they were both in the same division. I get that, but outside of that, even now when I look at Villa and Birmingham, even though they're in two completely divisions, the animosity towards each other is absolutely insane. But obviously, I don't get that here. But I think, for the fact that the two clubs are dealing with each other in such a professional manner, and obviously, you remember that Kevin Nolan team that you just talked about. We obviously had Ryan Yates and George Grant that year, and they made such a big impact to the team. And it does make perfect sense to me if you can utilise that relationship, because we all know that the players that Forest are producing, then why not tap into it? It's across the road. It makes sense for them because the players don't have to move far. They're getting valuable match time. They can keep an eye on them very closely. I know Andy Reid's been to watch Notts a few times this season, so it makes perfect sense. And why not? If you're going to get the players of Jaden Richardson's calibre on loan, and the same with Harry Arter in that respect, then it makes perfect sense. But at least the clubs are have that sort of those communication lines open. But I think both of those have made a big difference to the squad.
Yeah, but I think the difference is, Aston Villa and Birmingham's professional relationship as clubs will be fine, as will Wolves and West Brom, as will Derby and Leicester, as will Leicester and Nottingham Forest. So I think what we are in danger of here in this argument is confusing two issues. Notts and Forest have always had, a lot of people focus on the short tenure of Alan Hardy, but the relationship between Forest and Notts has always been strong. The reality is Notts have been on their uppers for a long time. So if you want to go back to the late 60s when Forest had their stand burnt down, when I was a young kid, then they played games at Notts County. Notts have always helped Forest. Forest have always helped Notts. I can remember Notts signing Justin Fashanu when he couldn't get a game at Nottingham Forest. I think earlier this season, Notts allowed Forest to take a young 15 or 16-year-old out of Notts' academy. Welsh kid, largely kept under the radar. So it's not just a one-way street. And I don't want to get on my soapbox here, but two clubs have separate identities in the same city, then clearly there is going to be a rivalry. Clearly that rivalry will be felt more by Notts fans because we're in a substantially lower level of football. Trevor, any closing thoughts on Forest and Notts?
Well, obviously, as Notts fans, you are trained to dislike the enemy, aren't you? That's you learn that from a very early age. But actually, the point you were making about where you have cities with two clubs, you'll quite often hear, not so much nowadays, but you'll quite often hear from, like when you and I were kids, Paul, that you would have people who would, one week they'd go and see Notts at home, the following week they'd go and see Forest. I can't imagine there would have been many people who would go and see Villa one week and Birmingham the next, or Liverpool one week and Everton the next. It just wouldn't happen. So I think there is, and I think that maybe I think with Forest they kind of look at Notts as being their little kid brother that they want to look out for and look after. Notts, because Forest are kind of doing what they're doing, don't take an awful lot of notice. I did actually watch the Forest game on TV on Sunday against Liverpool, which is not something I thought I'd ever say. And I have to say credit to Forest. The atmosphere that was coming across from there was absolutely superb, and they were quite unlucky, really. But but I'm glad they're out.
Look, for me as Notts, it is all about us aspiring to get back into the Football League and climbing the Football League. And I think you will then see a very different kind of rivalry. Neil Bishop made a great point when he came on the show a couple of months ago. And some of our younger fans kind of see Mansfield as the main local rival because they haven't seen us play Forest for such a long period of time. And Neil spoke about the League Cup tie, which was a draw and Forest won on penalties. And we were talking about rivalry. And Neil Bishop made a great point. He said, we were moving towards making Nottingham Forest as our main rivals. We wanted to get where they were. Yeah, we consider them their rivals. I never considered, while I was at Notts County, Mansfield Town to be our rivals, which I think is a very good point. And historically, the reality is Notts are playing their lowest standard of football ever. Yeah, Forest, under I think a very good manager with Steve Cooper, have a realistic chance of getting up through the playoffs into the Premier League this year. Anyway, enough of that. Right, Trevor, because I know you've done more research. Leigh, just check the transfer deadline. I've had a couple of our Magpie Circle blocks saying the deadline is tomorrow. So if you've got a day off, you better.
No, I know I'm back in tomorrow.
Right. So permutations, computations. While Trevor is going to give us chapter and verse, everyone give us your finishing position for Notts this season. We'll go into more detail in a minute. Give us your finishing position. Fire away now. Trevor, right, you've done the runners and the riders. Where are we going to finish?
Right, so Notts, I've currently got as finishing 5th, but I will qualify that by saying I've looked at all the fixtures for all the top 10 teams from now until the end of the season.
As you do. You were never studious doing the A-levels at Forest Fields College, was you?
That is very. I've never been this studious in my entire life, but I will qualify that and say because I might get shot down in flames for this, but I've predicted we'll get a draw on Saturday. But if we were to beat Chesterfield, looking at my projections for the points that I think the top 10 will get, Notts win on Saturday, and I'm going to say they'll finish 4th.
Okay. Right.
But I'm sticking with 5th at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Here's mine. I've done 1 to 7. I'll tell you what's an interesting bet. Stockport mathematically can get 106 points. Did you work? I'm sure you'd work that out, Trevor. So clearly, I'm going to say Stockport are going to win it and win it, I think, by 10 points. I think.
I've got them winning by 7.
Right.
I've got them winning by 7 on 99 points.
Second, Wrexham.
I agree.
Third, Halifax.
Yeah, got that.
Fourth, Solihull.
No.
Fifth, Notts. Sixth, Chesterfield. I do fancy to beat Chesterfield on Saturday. Kiss of death, I know that. Grimsby 7th.
You're virtually identical to me, Paul, with Solihull and Chesterfield, the only ones I differ with.
With my machinations, that would get us a home quarterfinal or semi-final, whatever you want to call it, with Grimsby. Then the difficult part, that would mean we would face Wrexham away, which I think would be tough. But Leigh, and I tell you what, I'll read everyone's out, give you a bit more time before putting your head on the chopping block. Max Seth, 5th. Steph Milek, 4th. Ian Birchinall, 3rd. Sam Cozy, 7th. Dale Pikett, 3rd. Chris Gosling, 6th. Mark Leach, he's edging his bets, 3rd/4th. You can only have one. Bloody hell, Mark. Gary Wardle, 6th. That's Gary, the Magpie Circle flop, ultra Magpie pessimist, 6th. Chris Gosling, sorry, I meant 5th, though he's changed his mind. Carl Hall, 3rd. Stephen Newton, 5th. Gary Midgley, 2nd. Shane Walker, 3rd. Pythagorean, 3rd. Zedo is a Forest rivalry, yes, but generally we don't hate them. It's just having years of Euro Cup wins and Clough adulation. Gary Phillips, 4th. Duncan Connery, 4th. I think we'll get 84 points. Stephen Knighton, 5th. Gary Wardle's top 7 is Stockport, Halifax, Wrexham, Chesterfield, Solihull, Notts and Bromley. Leigh, how's it panning out between now and the end of the season?
Well, funny enough, we had this conversation in the press box last night. Okay. I still think 3rd is obtainable. And I really would like Notts to finish 3rd because I just feel that, finishing 4th or 5th and having that home game, in the quarterfinal, I just really wouldn't fancy going away to Wrexham or anywhere like that. But I do think with the run-in and looking at some of the other teams' fixtures, Chesterfield have got some very hard games. I've looked at Wrexham's; they've got a fairly straightforward run-in until the last 3 games of the season when they've got some toughies. Chesterfield have got some tough games. I think 3rd is obtainable, but I think not. If we are to get that, then I think we need to be pretty much foot perfect. And let's be honest, Torquay and Southend away, they won't be easy games. Southend have picked up immeasurably under Kevin Mayer. Gary Johnson, you know what he's like. He's after a dreadful start, it seems to have got them ticking over. I think might be too much for them to do in terms of reaching the playoffs, but it will be a tough game. But I think we've got more than enough finish to go on a run to get that 3rd spot, maybe even 2nd, I don't know. But I think for us to do that, we're going to have to be foot perfect. But I believe we're capable of doing it. So I'm going to put my head on the block and I'm going to say 3rd.
Really?
I'm going to be brave and say 3rd, yeah. Just purely because I think that what Notts have proven to me this season is the games that they're expected to win, they invariably do. They are very good at putting away the teams that they should beat. So, your Maidenheads, your Wealdstones, your Weymouths, etc. Kings Lynn, obviously, I think Kings Lynn have still got to come here, haven't they? We've got Dover away, which you'd expect us to get something from. So I think those games don't really concern me. It's probably the only ones that I think that perhaps do cause me a little bit of trouble is Torquay away and Southend away, purely because Southend are actually having a decent run. I know they didn't have a very good result last night against Maidenhead, but they have picked up a great deal under Kevin Mayer. But I think with the players that, with Archer in the team, we've still got Callum Roberts to come back. I thought the performance last night was excellent and looked a lot more energetic than it had done the previous week against Stockport, when obviously we had all those problems with illness, etc. They looked to be bang at it. And let's face it, Luke Garrard said last night that Notts were the best team that they faced this season.
Yes, he did.
So, and I think that's what we're capable of. Last night is the sort of football that we are capable of producing. The only thing you would say is the fly in the ointment is I never, ever quite feel safe watching Notts. There are just games where you think that they should be put to bed. Last night, for example, it could have been 2 or 3 up before half-time, weren't, and then you're just waiting for that sting in the tail. And I think that's probably something that, if there's one improvement that the team you'd like to see make, it would be that is turning this sort of dominance, because they have periods in matches where they're absolutely on top and they're playing incredible football and they're creating chances, and they're only having 1 goal to show for it. Jaden Richardson's chance last night, the 2 that he had against Stockport. So I think if we can hone those finishing skills and produce the kind of football with the key players that we've got to come back, like Roberts, with Sam Graham in now, obviously bolstering the defence, I think we're capable of getting 3rd. I really do. If we don't make it, then feel free for everybody to come back in. We go panning, but No, I do feel third is obtainable for sure.
One of the big discussion points just before we were joining us on the show was the last two games, different players have been given game time as much as illness and injury. And those players would not necessarily have the prime characteristics, the technical characteristics. So you look at Connell, you look at Dion Kelly Evans. Clearly, Harry Arter has come in and gives a different dynamic or offering. And I think, and listening to the comments from our flop tonight, we now kind of have more confidence about Notts in a potential playoff campaign. You know, you talk more about adjectives like resilience, you know, being streetwise, Lacey dropping down, holding his head with 5 minutes to go, and then touching his knee and getting up. All of them things, it did seem that there was kind of a different dimension or a different ingredient to Notts in the last two games, which has coincided with 2 wins against promotion rivals.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think you know, if you take the players into isolation, you know, Connell has always been, for my money, has always been a meat and drink defender. I think he's never been the kind of sort of ball carrying centre half that perhaps Ian would like. But conversely, what he does give you in this league is what a lot of teams, you know, throw at you. They toss crosses into the box. They make life difficult. They want to turn you and they put the ball in behind. And I think Connell's been, I thought he was excellent last night. I thought Alex Lacey was very good. I thought it was one of his best performances of the season. I thought defensively he was very sharp. He was very smart. And you're right. I thought he was a bit streetwise as well. So those two, and we have to remember, you know, and people sort of forget this. When in the first season in the National League, you know, the defence that carried us all that way was Connell Rawlinson and Alex Lacey. We had the best defensive record in the league that year, and we also had the best goal scoring column in the league before it was halted. And they were fantastic in that run that we had when we, you know, before COVID hit. Those two had formed an incredible relationship, and it was the backbone for a great run. And we all thought, I mean, and I still think to this day that had the league continued, I think Notts would have probably gone very, very close, if not perhaps wrestled the title away from Barrow, because we were absolutely unstoppable. You know, that 4-0 win against Eastleigh is one of the best performances I've seen, not since we've been in the league. You know, totally dominant, really good football. And I do think this team is capable of doing that again. So while obviously the likes of Carl Cameron are out and Richard Brindley are out, you know, Alex Lacey and Connell, while may not be the kind of centre halves that sort of fit what Ian Birchnell wants from his centre halves, at this level, they are exceptional National League. And I would still pretty much say they are Football League defenders. You know, Alex Lacey, for my money, could easily play in a Football League. Same with Connell. I think they're both very good, very athletic. So I think those two in particular have, you know, if they need to hold the fort for however long, they're more than capable of doing it. They've proven that in the first season. And I think, like we've just touched upon, Harry Arter, I think in the centre of midfield, I always felt that we'd missed that kind of Michael Doyle character, that kind of shrewd midfield player, just knows what to do certain times of the game, you know, strong in the tackle, might lay something on one or two, but I don't mind that. I mean, we were in the press box last night and someone said, oh, that's not a good tackle, but I was like, I love that. You know, I think the kid was going past him, he just brought him down and just, you know. So I think he's certainly added a different dimension. So I think all the ingredients are there. You know, we're scoring goals. We've got 3 players on double figures. I think all the things that you would want from a team that's chasing promotion or wants to be involved in the reckoning come the end of the season, I think we pretty much tick every box. And that's without the likes of Carl Cameron at the moment, who's going to come back in probably one of the best centre halves in the league. So it looks good at the moment. It looks good at the moment. But yeah, so I still think third's obtainable, and yeah, I'm quite quietly confident about the run-in. But Saturday is a big game, and I would say, you know, touching what Trevor said, if Notts can win that game, the confidence that would give them for the remainder of the remaining games of the season, the lift in confidence in the dressing room as well. And there's a score to be settled there as well, because I thought wasn't really a lot between the teams in the first half. But in the second half, Notts never really turned up. The fans were disappointed with the performance, and it was a meek second half performance. So, they've certainly got the incentive there to put it right on Saturday. It'll be a full house. It'll be a great atmosphere. And Notts, as we've seen this season, their home record is absolutely phenomenal. Take the defeat to Wrexham and Rochdale in the cups out of the equation. Only lost twice against Woking and Grimsby, which is terrific.
Okay, lots to comment. Chris Gosling, Bromley, even their own fans think they're heading for a much lower finish. Interesting choice for someone to put them in the top 7. Gary Ward for Notts to make the top 3, even accounting for the fixtures, too many others would have to collapse. Paul Smith, it's not so much the position that Notts finishing, but more the momentum that they can carry into the playoffs that matters most. Duncan Comrie has Wrexham winning it only by a point from Stockport, 89 to 8. Sorry, has Wrexham pipping Stockport by a point, 89 to 88. He's got Notts in 4th on 84. Dale Pike, it says it's Stockport versus Wrexham last game of the season. Max said nobody mentions Boreham Wood. They do have 2 games in hand on us. Chris B, I got us in 7th with us having generally poor away results. Dale Pike, we played Dover home and away in the space of 6 days in April to May. Chris Gosling, recent away form gives us a much better chance of squeezing thirds. The Woking away room's a good marker for what is needed against the lesser opposition away from home. Steph Milek, Leigh, if Notts finish 3rd, I'll buy you next season's Liverpool home shirt. There you go.
I will keep him to that. I will keep him to that for sure.
Absolutely. XXL, Steph, okay?
Steady on.
Hey, after COVID, are you now an XL then? That's a tight squeeze, is it an XL? Zedo, Southend play a lot of the top teams, including us. They have improved. Could they have an influence on who promotion or even sneaking themselves? Yeah, I thought they might make a bit of a run set, but I mean, I have to say, what about the result Dagenham got there? They were 3 up at half time, 4 days before they played us. They won 4 out of 5. The only game they've lost Dagenham was against us. So you put into context that result against Dagenham, maybe that's kind of that little result that swings things around in our favour. What else have we got? Martin Hearson, Stockport will be fine. Means we pick up more points on opposition and hopefully gives us a better shot at 3rd or 4th. Trevor, you've been listening patiently. Chesterfield. So you don't fancy us on Saturday then?
I think when you say, for example, when you think Notts going to win, and it's the kind of kiss of death. So yes. I've tried to be sensible about it, but I'm not one of these that claim Notts going to win every game because if they don't win, I can say I was right, and if they do win, it's a bonus, and I'd prefer to be wrong, to be honest. But I can see it being a draw. And I think part of that is also that we seem to. I think, as I mentioned last time I was on here, we've only won more than 2 games on the trot in the league once this season, and we've just won our last 2. So we're gonna have to do something we've only done once previously this season, and win a 3rd game on the trot. So if we do, I fancy us for 4th. From what you were saying, Leigh, about Notts getting 3rd, I just think there's too much of a gap. I think the top 3 run away with it. I see Stockport on 99, Wrexham 2nd on 92, but I do think Wrexham will beat Stockport. Halifax 3rd on 91, and then I've got Chesterfield 4th on 82 and Notts 5th on 79. So I think, based on that, I think we'd have to make a fair few points there. But we won't be getting Liverpool shirt then, will I? Won't be getting that. No, whoever offered that, I think your money's safe.
I tell you what, whatever, irrespective of small predictions and all the rest of it, Leigh, I mentioned earlier in the programme, embrace the promotion running. We are in a promotion playoff campaign. Yeah, embrace it. Yeah. I think it will be a great atmosphere and occasion. I think Chesterfield have sold 2.5. I would imagine they'll sell 3,000 tickets. So it's going to be a good occasion Saturday, which I think is good for our younger fans, and it's something to get your teeth into.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic game. What are you talking about the playoff running in general, or just the Chesterfield game?
I'm talking about the Chesterfield game. This year we've been a bit unfortunate with the big games. They've been moved, they've been postponed. Wrexham away was a Tuesday, and all of this sort of thing. We played Stockport, when they were rubbish, but we contribute. We've helped them get top, haven't we? Because we battered them down here, and the manager got the hook not long after that. So Dave Challoner owes us for getting that ready job. This is one of the ones where it falls on a Saturday, and it's clearly a big game for both sets of fans. Good atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, it's for my money, there is no bigger game in the league in terms of if you look at the location of the two teams, the size of the support, the atmosphere it generates. I think it is, and given what's at stake in the fact that both teams are chasing promotion this season, it is, you would argue, the biggest game in the National League this year. I mean, what would you expect the gate to be Saturday? It would be pushing 10 for sure, won't it? So I know it's on the TV.
It's 5 figures. Yeah, I like to think it's 5 figures.
Yeah. And it's one of those games where you look at it and think, if as Trevor says, Trevor doesn't think that Notts are going to get third, but if they are to do it, then Saturday is a game that they must win, because, as you rightly point out, the gap may be a bit too big, and you're probably not going to see Chesterfield drop many points, although they have got some tricky games. I think they've still got to go to Halifax. I think they've still got to play Stockport. So it's a big game for them as well. And they still are missing some key players. There's no Shimanga. And I think Notts will be desperate to atone from that second half performance when we last played him, because that was a game that really, where we did miss a Harry Arter. When they were getting on top in the second half, the way we utilised the ball was very, very poor. We didn't control it. We didn't get hold of it. We didn't slow. We didn't try and take the sting out of the game. And I just think that, hopefully they'll have learned some lessons from that. And we beat a very good Chesterfield side in the playoffs last year, in dramatic circumstances, of course. So I don't think this game holds any fear in that respect. And I think, it's going to be a tremendous atmosphere. And I think the players kind of revel playing at Meadow Lane, certainly with the brand of football that Ian has adopted. Meadow Lane surface is absolutely like a billiard table every week. And it's no coincidence that their best results, their best performances have come at Meadow Lane. So I think if you look at the factors going into the game, that we've got Harry Arter, Callum Roberts may come back may be fit again for the weekend. There's a potential that Carl Cameron may be under consideration for coming back. And the way we played against a very good team in Boreham Wood, I think there's certainly reason there to be optimistic. I mean, I know, as Trevor pointed out, we've not won more than 2 games. We've only won more than 2 games once this season. Is that right, Trevor?
Yeah. We had a 4-game winning run earlier in the season.
Go.
No, I just remember that from last time. And then, but yeah. But, it's a good time to put it right, isn't it? And I think
these records are there to be broken, aren't they? So
of course they are.
And I think Ian's message should be towards, listen, lads, you win this Saturday, what that sets you up. That's the last team you've got to play in the top 10. It's the last team we've got to play in the top 10. So that's right, isn't it? Yeah. So, go out with a bang. Go and get the job done. Set yourself up for the last few remaining games of the season. And, because that momentum can really take you a long, long way. And as we've always said, when we've discussed this situation in the certainly last season, that team with the momentum behind them, when they're in really good form, like we were in the first year when we were absolutely fine, and then obviously COVID hit, it can take you a long way. It can really, really take you a long way. And you get the belief, manifests itself in the dressing room, and then it sweeps through the terraces. And next thing you know, you're turning up to games and you feel like you won't be beaten. And that's the kind of attitude that we have got to adopt. And I certainly think that we're more than capable of doing it.
On that note, as we spoke about earlier, embrace the playoffs. Embrace
Absolutely,
it, enjoy it, roller coaster ride. There's plenty of teams we mentioned earlier, Southend, Yeovilles, would love to be in this position. So let's everyone get behind. And yes, we know it's on the telly on Saturday. It's on BT, but that's no substitute for being there. And I think take on board your point, Leigh, Trevor. I would want us to hit 10,000. Doesn't matter whether it's on telly or not. Clearly, people masses of miles away and all the rest of it can see it. But players have done, and the coaching staff, and everyone's done. The last 2 games have kind of, to me, shown more realistic football, more a style of football that is more suited to getting us promotion for the vast majority of the rest of the season. No matter how much we attach style points, I think if you can replicate what we've done in the last 2 games, then I don't think there's anyone to fear. Final comments, Trevor?
No, you're right. As I say, we've got the opportunity to get a bit of momentum going. As Leigh says, we've got potentially easier games coming up after we've got Chesterfield and then Southend out of the way. Get a bit of momentum going there, and if we can, if we can continue to show the same kind of resilience that we've shown, and actually, Stockport away being the exception, we've actually, we've played well against the teams up and around the top. So, as you quite rightly say, there's no one to fear whatsoever. And if we did have to go, let's say, to Wrexham away or something like that in the playoffs, they're going to be the ones under all the pressure. We're saying, we need promotion. I mean, they're absolutely desperate to get promotion, and it piles the pressure on the likes of Wrexham. But you look at the teams in and around the playoffs at the moment. We would give any of them a game on our day. It just depends which Notts team turns up. But if we, if we play like we can do, no one to fear whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would take issue with you, Trevor, I don't know what your views are, Leigh. There should be no one more desperate in this division to get promotion than Notts County Football Club. There's no excuses. For me, Wrexham have spent a lot of money. They've got to go up. Chesterfield have, gambled on everything. They've got to go up. A desire to get promotion is from within your own management and coaching team, from within your own players. That decides whether you're going to go up or not.
I think with Wrexham, I think it's more that there is, I probably worded it badly, but I think there is more an expectation that they will go up.
No, of
course not. No.
Yeah, sometimes things irk me when people make excuses for us. We can't compete with Wrexham because they've spent all that money. Sutton did a lot better than we did. Barrow did a lot better than we did in each of the last years. Rest assured, we spent a lot more money than them. I can promise you of that. So to me, of course, it helps you. It's how you spend your pennies, isn't it? It's how you spend your pennies. And I would like to think there is no team more desperate to get promoted than Notts County. given the pedigree, given the history, given the fan base, given the stadium, all of those sorts of things, for me, as I said, either, right, Ian Birchinall and the players get the freedom of the city in June, yeah, winning the playoff final at Wembley. Give them the freedom of the city, give them long-term. They have earned every single penny of that. They've written themselves into Notts County history. I think I'm right in saying that was kind of Neil Ardley's gist of his speech to the players, which clearly didn't have very well at Wembley or in the week leading up to it. Conversely, if it goes pear-shaped and we don't go up, then I think that's an unmitigated failure. It's an unmitigated failure. And then I think you have the inquest, root and branch, and you look through everything. Why did we not get promoted? But we're not at that stage yet. We've got 10 games plus playoffs. And as I said, and I think Max Seth, someone's picked up the point as well. For me, the style of football we've played in our last 2 games, I'm far happier with that than I was 8, 9, 10, 11 games ago. Because I think if you can start to replicate this with Arter, a bit more aggression, digging in, I like seeing Dion Kelly-Evans in this team. You know, he gives you a little bit of something that some of the other players don't do. And someone picked up on the comments made by, you would have heard these, Leigh, that it's up to the other players to force their way into this team. You know, where and that I think will be interesting Saturday, because historically maybe Dion plays a game, goes out again. You know, Connell comes in for a couple, goes out again. I mean, do you think he's going to broadly stick with the same team, Leigh, from his comments he made last night or not?
Well, I mean, it would all depend on who's fit and available. I mean, if Kyle Cameron is back fit and is 100%, then I presume he would play. I mean, that was just purely because he is such a good player. But, you know, the performance last night, certainly the first 45 minutes, was some of the best football I've seen this season. So, but I think you're right in what you're saying, that the fact that Dion Kelly-Evans, Connell, Harry Arter, they give you that bit of grit, the dirty side of the game. I don't like calling it dirty, but, you know, the ugly side, you know, doing the hard yards, putting in the horrible tackles, getting your head on things. I mean, Dion last night, even though he played left back, I thought he was excellent, really good. And you know what you're going to get from him. You know, there's, you know, those players, your Connells and your Dions, they might not be as cultured in possession. They might not have the ability on the ball that we've become accustomed to seeing other players. But I'll tell you what you're going to get from them every game. You never, in terms of their attitude, you never have to toss a coin. You know, you're never wondering if Dion Kelly-Evans is going to shirk out of a tackle. He never does. So or when Ian Birchinall comes to pick his team, he knows for a fact that Dion Kelly-Evans, when he has got that shot on, gives nothing less than 100% in terms of what he does and how he rats the opposition. And while he may not be as sort of silky as Jayden Richardson, for example, if you want to use this as a comparison, because they both play right wing back, you know, Jayden's very cultured on the ball, very good going forward. But in terms of the tackling, the ugly side of the game, you'd have to say Dion, in that respect, is absolutely tailor-made for the National League. He absolutely loves it. You know, we've all spoken on this show numerous times about the tackles that Dion loves to throw in. And it's the same with Connell. So those players, maybe it is that blend of having a bit of substance and style. You know, we've had a team this year that's been a delight to watch, but there has been times when we have questioned them in terms of, do they have the substance? Do they have are they capable of doing the ugly side of the game that gets you results? Are they capable of gritting out a 1-0 win? But you see, and that's perhaps the beauty of the squad at the moment with the likes of Dion and Connell and Harry. Those players give you something a bit different that to what the team usually picked itself, didn't it, earlier on in the season in terms of its ability on the ball. But those players have come in the last couple of games and have done really well. So, and like we've seen, you know, and history has shown us that they are players who will put their absolute bundle into everything. You know, Conor Rawlinson would add a brick wall if it meant him clearing an header. So, you know, it's just they're the players that are, you know, when you're going into that I would say the less than salubrious places in the league where you have to go and dig out a result, they're the players who can really motor you along.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time. We're into the 80th minute of the show. So thank you very much, Trevor, for your time and your statistical prowess. Leigh, thank you for joining us in between filing not stories. And glad to see that you are fighting fit. You've got an incentive. We finished third. You get a free Liverpool shirt next season, courtesy of one of our.
I didn't see who it was. Who was it? What was the last farming the username?
Steph Milek. I met Steph at Dagenham. He comes and watches Notts from Worthing in Sussex.
Blimey. That is some trek, that is as well, by the way. I'll hold him to that, though. I'll hold him to that.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you what, Leigh, if Notts finish third, I'll buy you the shorts and socks to go with you.
Well, I'll wear them on the show. I can wear them on the show, can I?
You do that, yeah. Yeah.
Hey, gentlemen.
I won't get saving.
Magpie Circle flock, thank you very much. Steph Marley, he says Leigh will get into a medium. Not a chance. He needs to have COVID for another 6 months before he gets into a medium. Right. Thank you, everyone, before it degenerates too much. Let's everyone get down the lane on Saturday. We don't need to be watching it on the telly unless you absolutely cannot get there. Should be a cracking atmosphere. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Leigh. We will be back on Monday next week post Chesterfield. Take care for now. Bye-bye.